claiming that a 6-mile-wide asteroid crashed into the planet, unleashing the power of 1 billion nuclear weapons is an extraordinary claim. So where is the evidence? Where is the smoking gun? Well,
Well, this build is quite disgusting. And in case you've had an epileptic seize just from watching the gameplay, no worries. You can play with fireballs or spark rather than Comet if you choose to. This is quite a complex build, but when you get this bad boy up and running, holy shit, are you going to blast hard. Links to the creators will be in the description where you'll find a bunch of good stuff, and in this one, we'll be focusing on the lovely man Siroc's version of the build, which is inspired by the Tsukuyomu. So if you're interested in having fun, screen-wide clearing and dominating all content, you're in the right spot. I'm Paragaming from Paragaming, and welcome to Paragaming. So starting us right off, let's see how we deal damage. And it's all due to Barrier Invocation. It's a persistent buff gem, so you're free to slot in whatever you want as damage skill. So experiment a little for Christ's sake, as my wife said before she pegged my ass for the first time. You'll generate energy for your Barrier Invocation, and the skill that you're socketing into your Barrier Invocation will trigger and become usable. Easy, huh? Yeah, sure, but the thing about this skill is the first line here. When hit, we gain energy. So this gem should only trigger as the enemies are pounding our ass, correct? Oh, my beautiful viewer, you're not only fat and stupid, but you're also completely wrong. Via a few interactions, we can in fact make ourselves burn with fire damage, which triggers this gem and automatically cast a gazillion skills. For starters, we have Demon Form. This will drain our life, and we in turn take damage. Unfortunately though, this does not count as taking a hit, meaning it's rather used for a shit ton of damage. A skill in the Ascendancy that does allow us to take hits of damage, however, is Pyromantic Pact. What this does is that it throws your mana pool in the trash, turns it into Infernal Flame instead, and as it does this, you take fire damage as you're spamming skills. And the fire damage, my friends, counts as taking hits for Barrier Invocation. This also means that the more skills you spam, the more damage you will take, and in turn, allow for more Barrier Invocation spamming. If you understand this, then you understand the basics of the build. What we then need to do is not fucking die, and we'll in turn be able to ditch out a gazillion Barrier Invocations with our socketed skills. So, let's check out what we need to do to not fucking die then, shall we? Damn right. Now spoilers. This is an endgame build. You'll need high skill gems as to spend more mana, and in turn take additional damage from Infernal Flames, and your gear should be as follows. For starters, the more life you have, the more damage your Demon Form will drain. So what we do to avoid this is simply to get as little life as possible. You'll accomplish this by avoiding max life on your gear and strength in the passive tree like the plague, and you'll slap on the following two uniques. Ghost Writhe Tattered Robe, which converts your max life into Energy Shield, which is a massive W in itself, seeing as we'll need a buttload of Energy Shield to stay alive as well, and also Ming's Heart Amethyst Ring, which simply put decreased our max life. These two items are the only required ones to make the build function, but we of course have a few additional gear pieces to care about. For starters, Energy Shield is your best friend, and you have to get your resistances capped. You're also aiming to grab additional maximum fire resistance, as this will reduce the fire damage that you're taking from your Infernal Flames. Fire resistance is by far your most important stat to get capped as well. On top of that, you'll need Spirit on your amulet, as we'll rock 120 spirit for our skills. The build also required you to grab a good life regeneration roll here, or else you'll fucking die. And you also want a damage recouped as life. And finally, you're looking for a flask, such as this one in combination with some mana on your gear, or else you'll just kill yourself. Grab all of this, and your build should be online. Meaning for an insanely broken build, it's indeed cheap, which is indeed lovely seeing, as you most likely spent all of your life savings on Gazzy's stream, making him bald as to not feel so bad about your receding hairline. Hell, I sure as hell know I did. In any way, the TLDR for the gear, no fucking max life. A bunch of energy shields, spirit on your amulet with some good mana and life regen rolls, and all of your resistances capped, but especially fire resistance. Alright friends, so that's the gear. Let's see what gems you're looking for right now, shall we? Let's do it. For starters, we have Demon Form. This skill, as you most likely know, boosts your damage to the goddamn moon the longer you keep it up, starting at 0.5% life per second per flame. So if you have 34 life per second, like on the amulet here, and 300 life, for example, then you can handle how many demon flames? Correct, a shit ton of them. In case we screw up, we have Second Wind to gain us an additional charge of Demon Form, and Ingenuity if we screw up again and need it to recharge quickly. We then have Barrier Invocation. Here, you socket the skill of your choosing and a couple of buffs, namely Capacitator for additional max energy, considered casting for more damage, Spell Echo for even more damage and AoE, and finally Spell Cascade for not damage, actually. But it's what makes your balls shoot to the sides and all over the place for greater clearing. Next up is Alchemist's Boon. This is an extremely important one, as you'll gain your flask charges from this gem, and you'll spam that button like a maniac to keep your energy shield up via the passives later on. You then boost it further via Herbalism. Next up is Arctic Armor, and this is how you can tell that Path of Exile is the superior game. Armor, not armor. Do you have an idea what other game uses armor rather than armor? Correct. In any way, this skill allows you to freeze everything around you no problemo as you're taking damage. You then support it via Deep Freeze for even more freeze in combination with Cold Mastery, because what the hell else are you supposed to grab here, and Glaciation for additional freeze yet again. And finally, Hypothermia. This is an important one because without spending mana, you'll just stand there like an idiot before you start getting your barrier invocations up. For this, you'll use the Hypothermia spell, cursing your nearby enemies. You can also throw out a curse here and there in case you're lacking the required gear as to keep those infernal flames burning. You can then slap on the heightened curse and you'll get some additional curse strength, working nicely with Comet for the reduced cold resistance on your enemies. Well, shit, will you look at that? Gems complete as well. How about dropping a goddamn sub, will you? Do it right now, or I'll send the bald man to punch you in the nutsack. Alright, next up, we have the passives. Let's see what's going on there. First out, you know we want that demon form baby. Playing as a new demon with your tits out is the only way to play this game. Don't try tell me otherwise. You then have your Pyromantic Pact, which is how we take damage and stack up the infernal flames in combination with Grinning Immolation to gain some of that lovely crit damage and self-inflicted damage. And finally, Altered Flesh as to turn our damage taken into fire and chaos, making it easier to solve for defensives. For the passives, we start off by stacking up that energy shield all the way until we get to Loose Flesh to take some damage over damage again, along with Soul Bloom to gain energy recovery rate, which will be lovely in combination with Eternal Youth further down, which is insanely mandatory seeing as we're relying on Energy Shield to stay alive. All the nodes here are there to boost our Energy Shield, along with Enhanced Barrier for more fire resistance. We then head on down to Narnia to grab increased energy for our barrier invocation. After that, it's time for some damage, defensives, flasks, and of course eternal youth, as we spoke about earlier. This in turn makes our flasks recover energy shield rather than life, so we can spam that bad boy to keep the thing up permanently. Next, we go for Hail Traveler, which also grants us life flask charges, and we're now up to roughly a charge per second, which will further boost via the concoctions clustered down here. And to finish it all off, we have, yes, you guessed correctly, even more flask charges and recovery. Lovely. A passive tree all about flask charges and energy shield. Snooze, am I right, folks? Nah, it's necessary. There is one thing left, though, that is also insanely important. Now that you've got your build set up with all the correct passives, your free options are the jewels. And of course, anything you want to swap in the passives, but if you suck at the game and you're following the guide completely, then the jewels are your options. So for the build to function, we need enough energy generation, or rather mana cost, to take enough damage for via infernal flames and allow us to spam barrier invocation. To boost this part of the build, you can grab gems with increased energy regen. Now, to not fucking die to the demon form damage, you must get enough life regen and fire resistance. Don't have enough on your gear? Then grab it via the jewels. And finally, you need enough flask charges and recovery to sustain your energy shield. Don't have it? Grab it on the jewels. These are the things that you can solve for yourself. You're a capable human being, so get to work and get that shit solved. You'll most likely get yourself killed a few times playing this build, but it's part of the fun. We're almost done with this epic guide now. There's but one thing left to do. Learn how to get hecking good, that is. Let's do it. The build works similar when both mapping and slapping bosses with your demon titties. All you need to do is to spawn in, press your demon form, throw out a few curses to start stacking up your infernal flame until you can start blasting barrier invocation. After that, the build should be self-sufficient if you've got the gear requirements sorted. All you do now is spam that barrier invocation button and you'll delete screens. On rough elites or bosses, however, you can indeed curse them. This will allow you to deal additional cold damage and in turn blow them up via your comets. And of course, don't forget to have some goddamn fun. That's all for this one. Check out the creators in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.